Rabbi Sai Azoi. The Gemara in Eruvin says that what Pinchas did, an act of zealotry, Leman Hashem, is a halacha ve'ein moirin ken, meaning it's acceptable, but the Beis Din will not tell someone to do that. But that's difficult to understand. If halachically it's okay, why will the Beis Din not tell someone they can go ahead and do it? My hi. This week marked the yortzeit of Rav Yaakov Yosef Herman, the subject of the book All for the Boss, who was one of the heroes of American Yiddishkeit in the 20th century. In 1888, he arrived in America on a boat from Russia with his parents and his sister. His family were hoping for some kind of economic financial security. But after 5 years of financial difficulty, which was intensified by the fact that his father will not work on Shabbos or even on the Chol HaMoed, they had to return to Russia to try to find some money to live. But they couldn't afford a ticket for Yaakov Yosef, who was now 13, so they left him in America with some cousins. However, after a few weeks, without warning, his cousins raised the rent. Yaakov Yosef was very disappointed that he left the house, never to go back. It was an Erev Shabbos, and he just about mustered enough money to buy 3 challahs. He spent that Shabbos alone, a young boy, in Hester Park in New York, sleeping on a bench. As he woke up on that Shabbos morning, he made a vow. He would never have a Shabbos table, his own Shabbos table, without orchim. Even that meant going to search for lonely, destitute people in the park. This was a stipulation which Rav Yaakov Yosef made when dating his wife, Adel. And indeed, the hachnasas orchim in their house was legendary. Hundreds of guests, month after month. They found there hot food and ruchnius warmth. The great Rav Baruch Ber only agreed to come to America to critically fundraise for his yeshiva when he heard about the kashrus standards in the house of the great Machnis Arech, as he was known, Rav Yaakov Yosef. He was also famed for taking young Talmidim under his wing and sending them off to learn in the great yeshivas of Europe, including Rav Avigdor Miller and Rav Chaim Pinchas Scheinberg, who eventually became his son-in-law. At the same time, Rav Herman was known for his Pinchas-like kanayos, for his public stances. For example, he came out very strongly against mixed dancing at weddings. At the wedding of his first daughter, a large sign read, "All the food belongs to the Lord. After the bracha, to you." And the invitation carried a request to dress modestly, which was an unheard of request at the time. And he was once seen on a Sunday walking along a boardwalk near a beach in New York, carrying a sign which said, "Jewish sons and daughters, the Torah prohibits mixed bathing." Back to our question about Pinchas. If it's halacha, kanai and poigim boy, why is it the Beis Din are ein moirin ken? Perhaps the answer is that to be a true kanai, an authentic kanai, that requires being kulo l'shem shemayim, that it has to come from a point of tzidkus. And that's very difficult for anyone else to know, even the Beis Din. That's lying deep in the person's own heart. But perhaps, even from afar, when we look at the life of Rav Yaakov Yosef Herman, at his tzidkus, at his championing of Torah, and his unbelievable hachnasas orchim, it seems like he had all the credentials to be a true kanai, kulo l'shem shemayim. But don't take my word for it. On one occasion, the Herman family actually got a supernatural haskama. In the late 1920s, their son, Nachum David, was learning in Hebron Yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael. One night, Rebbetzin Herman had a dream. She was standing outside a dark room, and she could hear coming from the room loud sounds of crying. She gently opened the door and walked in. She saw there an extremely tall woman weeping. A voice told her that woman was none other than Sarah Imenu. And Sarah Imenu showed her a large casket lying on the floor. Inside that casket was Avram Avinu, with tears rolling down his beautiful face into his long white beard. At that point, Rebbetzin Herman, in the dream, cried out that she would not leave until her tefillahs were answered. At a certain point, Sarah Imenu grabbed Rebbetzin Herman's hand and told her, "You can go now. Your tefillahs have been answered." And Rebbetzin Herman woke, shocked by this extremely unusual dream. Shortly after the dream, Rav Yaakov Yosef, in 1928, sent for his son Nachum David to come home from Hebron, even though he was learning so well under Moshe Mordechai Epstein, the Rosh Yeshiva, who had been a frequent guest in the Herman house. People were puzzled by the decision. When they consulted Rav Baruch Ber said, "I don't really understand the decision, but I won't oppose the words of a great tzaddik." So when the telegram arrived in Hebron to Nachum David, it was time to come home, he obeyed the words of his father and traveled back to America. In 1929, on Yud Ches Av, it was a very terrible day. Arabs ran riot in Hebron, massacring and slaughtering dozens of Jews. Almost 70 people were killed that day. and many of the victims were from the Hebron Yeshiva. Of course, the Herman family, when they found out about this, were devastated. On that Sunday night, Rav Herman said to his wife, Adel, you remember the dream that you had about Avram Avinu and Sarah Meinu, which prompted me to send for Nachum David to come back from Hebron to America? We were on trial upstairs. Our son's life was at stake. And because we are so devoted to the mitzvah of Hachnasas Orchim, which Avram Avinu and Sarah Meinu first taught to the world, they came as our advocates, pleading in our defense. The life of our son was spared. Rav Yaakov Yosef Herman, what a yid. Like Pinchas, he was kinna, dafkel elokav. Yehei zichro baruch. O good Shabbos.